Hello, and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. A lot of you have asked me for my thoughts on Bill C-10, so that's what I'm going to try to provide here. Now, this is one that hits fairly close to home for reasons that'll become fairly clear very quickly. What Bill C-10 proposes to do is to modify the Broadcasting Act as well as some other related acts. And the bit that's got everybody kind of up in arms is this bit right here. So non-application certain programs. This act does not apply in respect of A, programs that are uploaded to an online undertaking that provides a social media service by a user of the service who is not the provider of the service or the provider's affiliate or the agent or mandatory of either of them for transmission over the internet and reception by other users of the service, and B, online undertakings whose broadcasting consists only of such programs. So when you think of who is this referring to? Well, this is referring to me. I am a person who uploads things to a social media service, being YouTube, and I'm a user of that service, and I'm not the provider of that service. I'm not affiliated with YouTube. I'm not working for Google or anything like that. And, I have an online undertaking whose broadcasting consists only of such programs. Runkle of the Bailey consists entirely of, me and my thoughts and so forth. So this applies to me, but it applies to lots of other people. Lots of people use social media to upload things, their thoughts, their, funny dog videos, their whatever it is that they're putting up there. Now, this seems like a great provision, right? This is fantastic. They're saying we don't want to apply the Broadcasting Act, which would bring everything under the ambit of the CRTC to, YouTube videos. And it is a great provision. So the question is, why did they take this out at committee? Because this provision is no longer in the bill. It was removed at the committee stage. Now, they've said that they don't want to use this to regulate, social media postings. Now, I'm skeptical of this. The reason why I'm skeptical is because there's certain things that you can collect. People collect cars, some people collect guns, people collect coins. So, when you talk about these things, somebody says, I'm getting this thing. I don't plan to do anything with it. I just want to keep it and have it. That makes sense. But laws are not like this. Laws are more like things like milk, where if somebody's going to buy a liter of milk, it's because they have plans to use the milk. Or, for example, a kilogram of heroin. If somebody has a kilogram of heroin, it's because they plan to do things with it. Nobody goes out and collects heroin. Similarly, when the government says, hey, we are, getting a law, they're not collecting laws. Nobody does that. They're intending to use them for something. So when we see them removing this exception here, we can infer that they plan to do something with it. Now, the minister on this has been saying repeatedly, oh, no, we don't plan to regulate your social media stuff. We're not going to do that. And then later kind of walked that back and said, well, only if you have enough followers, then we're going to come back. And we don't know how many followers that is. Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 20,000? Is it 100,000? Who knows? So we don't know who exactly they plan to aim this at, but it could well be everybody. Now, the other thing is that this will actually end up affecting everybody, even if they say that they're only going to aim it at producers of a certain amount. Now, some people have said, hey, listen, the rules here are really designed to promote Canadian creators. Isn't that great for you because you're a Canadian creator? And I mean, it's hard to get more Canadian creator than me. I talk about Canadian law. I am a Canadian. I am currently sitting in Canada. And, just about everything I do is Canadian. I mean, it's really hard to get more Canadian than talking about the Canadian legal framework and so forth. However, am I Canadian enough to benefit from this? Almost certainly not. And let's explain why, because this gets a little complicated, and this will go into sort of why this bill might be being pushed. So, when we get into what counts as Canadian, you're not Canadian just because you're producing Canadian stuff in Canada and so forth. You have to be a certified Canadian program. And this is from the CRTC's webpage. And what are the rules? There's all sorts of different organizations involved in this, and you have to be eligible to be certified as Canadian by the CRTC. So the producer must be a Canadian and must act as a central decision maker. There is a point system for the key creative features that are performed by Canadians. You have to get 6 out of 10 points, usually. There's exceptions. We'll talk about that too. 75% of the production services costs must be paid to Canadians, and at least 75% of the production's post-production and laboratory costs must be paid for services provided in Canada by Canadians or Canadian companies. And it must qualify for certification under an eligible program category. Okay. Now, one big thing that leaps out here is in terms of 75% of the production services costs. I will tell you that my costs for producing most videos are very low. They involve, I sit in the chair, I hit record, and I start talking, which is good because the revenue for most videos that I put out is very low. We're talking like $10. So, when you plot this out on an hourly basis, I am really working hard to maybe achieve minimum wage on this. So it's, given that, you got to keep costs low. So when you're talking about, the costs must be paid to Canadians, there's not a whole lot of costs, which means that any cost I do incur for a particular video is going to skew things really badly. If I decide, for instance, to have a jingle made for a particular video and I end up paying somebody $25, well, that's the entirety of the cost of that video, and that video is probably going to be losing money overall. But if I happen to hire somebody who happens to be outside of Canada, now I would be ineligible to be certified as Canadian because 75% of the production services costs would not be in Canada. Now, there's certain programs that don't require CRTC certification, produced in-house by a CRTC licensed or exempt broadcaster. Well, I would be an exempt broadcaster, except they've removed that, so that wouldn't qualify. Commercially released music video clips of 5 minutes or less, again, doesn't cover me. Federal and provincial government productions, no, I'm not in government. Public service announcements, interstitials, and any other productions of less than 5 minutes. Well, I have a real hard time talking for less than 5 minutes, as you may know. I am already over 5 minutes. So I'm going to require CRTC certification if I want to count as Canadian content. They also exclude things like infomercials, promotional and corporate videos or films, which often includes things like review videos. So for instance, if I ever did a review of something, they might count it as a promotional video, and then it would be excluded. So continuing on here, there's a whole lot of stuff. Before you apply, you must meet the following 3 requirements to process your application. So this is before you even start applying. Principal photography has started. Well, I will tell you that the principal photography starts and finishes basically within a few hours. So I have to somehow get this application going while I'm recording the video, basically. All key creative personnel are under signed contract. There's just me. That's it. I don't have a team here. And the committed budgets are in place. I don't generally have a budget. I'm sorry, I'm not big enough to have a budget. Then you got to choose the right application form. And there's 6 different application forms to choose from. So that's fun, right? And I will tell you, these forms are not short. Let's see if I can find one of these forms here. So here's a form, live action. So you can see the form here, and it just keeps going, right? Now, a lot of this will be easy to fill out, but it's not a short form. And you got to do this for each video, in theory. Given that I try to put one out every day or every few days, that's going to be a bit of a difficult process. Even if I sort of get good, even if there's a lot of stuff that I can repeat, I still have to make sure that I'm right on all of these forms. And some of them require additional appendixes. For instance, documenting your breakdown of costs. So that's fun. Submitting your application. You can submit it online, or you must submit it online using your MyCRTC account, where you have to get a code and do all this fun stuff. And they say they will email you a confirmation ID within 24 hours. That confirmation ID is not your approval. It is just your, we've received it. They may send it back if there's incomplete information, and you may have to amend it. So that's fun. And then they will send you a certification letter when they finally decide to do it. Now, again, I put out a video, or I try to, every, few days or every couple days or sometimes every day. I don't have 2 weeks to wait for this. A lot of the time, my turnaround on making a video and producing the video and, putting it out there is within 24 hours, because a lot of the time I'm talking about sort of developing events. If I have to wait for, 2 weeks, a lot of this stuff might be past its sell date. Nobody cares anymore. So that's kind of brutal. And then they give you a certification letter, and there's all of this. This is a complicated sort of thing. Now, there's other sort of aspects here in terms of these positions that you need. So eligibility, key creative definitions and requirements. So there's a director, screenwriter, first and second lead performers or voices, production designer or art director. You have to hit 6 out of 10 of these positions, basically, being Canadian. Now, you might say, well, that's easy because you're all of these things, except that I'm actually not most of these things. I'm not the director of photography, and I don't know if I'm the chief camera operator. I mean, the camera right now is sitting on the top of my monitor screen, and I'm not doing a whole lot of operating on it. There's a first lead performer or voice, that'd be me, but I don't think I've got a second lead performer or voice unless my dogs are being really rambunctious and you can hear them in the background. There's no screenwriter. There's no director. All of these things just don't exist. So these are features that just don't exist. Now, they actually think about that, because they have all of these different, things about you got to earn 6 out of 10 points. And, these mandatory points must be achieved for one-off productions and for each episode in a series. And they've got the details on the point system. Now, there is an exception to that. And one of the exceptions that comes up here is that there's certain, I'm trying to find it here again. I'll just summarize because I'm not sure where it is right now. But they're saying for some documentaries and so forth, you might not be able to get to 6 points because you don't have all of those different people. Oh, here it is. So in productions that do not use some key creative positions, such as documentaries, making it impossible to meet the 6-point minimum, we will grant Canadian certification provided that Canadians fill all key creative roles. Now that's going to be discretionary. I'm going to have to say, listen, I don't have a director. I don't have a screenwriter. I don't have all of these things, but everything is me. And somebody's going to have to review that, and somebody's going to have to put extra scrutiny in on that and decide, is Runkle of the Bailey Canadian enough? Notwithstanding the fact that literally everything about this is Canadian. So I probably won't be able to navigate this. This sort of thing is really easy if you're a major production and you have, a legal team and you can just run it through compliance and they can take care of this. Some of this stuff requires affidavits that have to be submitted. It's not a big deal if you're doing a major production and you just, have the compliance team do this. However, when you're doing something along the lines of what I'm doing, or what most other people on YouTube or most social media presences are doing, you're not going to be able to navigate this. So if you're an individual social media user who's not going to be able to get certified as Canadian content, it doesn't matter how Canadian your stuff is. You can be a Canadian citizen who entirely does videos reviewing Canadian maple syrups, and that's not going to be good enough. You're going to still be seen as an American or some other foreign influence. That's how you're going to be ranked. So when they say that they're going to be trying to make sure that Canadian content is discoverable, they mean pushing up the people who have the certifications in the rankings so that they're more likely to be shown, which means pushing down the stuff by individual Canadian social creators. That's a bit of a problem here. So it doesn't just not help the individual social media user, it's actively harmful. They're also talking about taking a percentage off YouTube and other such places. Well, YouTube's not going to just lose that off of its profit margins. What they'll do is they'll pass that on. And so you're actually going to be paying for that subsidy that then goes to those bigger creators who can navigate this process. So not only are you going to be pushed down in the rankings, you're going to be paying for the privilege. Might not sound so great, right? Now you might be thinking, why would they do this? Who benefits from this? Well, again, the people who benefit from this are almost certain to be the bigger producers. And when you think about it, these bigger producers are the people who are threatened by the growth of individual social media popularity, essentially. It used to be that if you wanted to watch, funny home accidents, you had to go and turn on your TV and watch America's Funniest Home Videos. That show, I don't think it could exist anymore, because instead, if you want to watch some people, falling off their stairs or getting hit in the nuts with a football, you can just go on YouTube and there are hours and hours and hours of this. But that doesn't go to these major studios. These major studios who have been going through the process of being declared Canadian content and have been benefiting from that, really, I don't think they like that now they're in competition with some random guy and his, funny dog video. They don't want to lose out to funny dog video. So if they can push that down and direct eyeballs back to them, that's great for them. It's not so great for people like me and many other Canadians. I am an example here. Now, I'm not somebody who's doing this for a living. This is a side project for me. This is something I enjoy doing. I like communicating with people. I like trying to explain the law. But some people are making a living on this, and this could actually threaten their livelihood. The other thing is that these individual voices, a lot of them are people talking about politics or talking about what it means to be Canadian or just the Canadian experience as not filtered through some producer. So it's people going out and videoing their actual lives. This is very core communication. I go up and I talk about Canadian law and often my opinions on Canadian law and Canadian politics. This is very much sort of the core of protected expression. Now, they've said that they don't want to come after me personally. They don't want to punish me for having content that they don't approve of. But of course, they don't have to. They're saying that they're going to go after the big tech giants. So what they're going to do then is going after the big tech giants, say, this is what you have to, prioritize. This is what you have to push down. This is content you have to remove. And, they may not ever come after me, but they're still affecting me and my ability to have a voice. Because if they shut down my ability to get that voice out, that really infringes my ability to engage in free expression. Saying, hey, you can talk about whatever you want, but we're going to prevent you from having an audience is something that the government should not be able to do. This is a real big deal. And when they start talking about affecting individual social media users, they're really wanting to shut down these voices. They're wanting to limit them. They're wanting to sort of control this. That's a really big problem in my view. I mean, you might disagree here, but I think this bill is a major blunder by the Liberal Party. It goes too far, and we can see that it goes too far by virtue of the fact that when they were challenged on all of this, why do you want to, regulate social media? They said, oh, well, no, that's not what we're doing. And then when they get called on it, they say, well, yeah, it is what we're doing, but we only want to regulate, those other social media users. And we only want to do it through the big tech companies. Well, that's still going to affect, the small users. There's no way that they can, tell YouTube what YouTube has to, push up or push down without it affecting the random small social media user who then is getting pushed up, pushed down, or just pushed off entirely. So I have serious concerns about this, and I'm glad to hear that they have now just recently, yesterday, announced that they were sending this back for some further charter, discussion, evaluation. Now, I have some skepticism about the process. I suspect that this is probably going to be sent off to, have some people basically explain why they think it's just fine and explain why they think, everything is just perfectly rosy. But we'll see. Regardless, Bill C-10 should not be passed in its current form. What they're trying to do, the idea behind this is a bad idea, and it's one that threatens Canadian voices, and especially small individual Canadian voices. Anyway, I guess that's my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think. You know, maybe I'm being a little too reactionary here. Maybe you think I'm being paranoid about who benefits from this. I don't think I am, but of course, it's always hard to tell when you're out of line. This also isn't normally my wheelhouse. You know, I do criminal defense and firearms law. The reason why I'm interested in this is both because I have an interest in free expression and privacy laws and these things, and also because I have become a creator, largely by accident, but I'm in the role of the people targeted by this bill. So anyway, thank you for watching. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters who make this possible. At the $50 level, Jason Elliott, D-Mo, Canada's National Firearms Association, North Central Process Service, Kyle Martin, Jean-Guy Toussaint, Ivo Nedev, the CCFR, bcamf.org, Andrew Schaefer, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. At the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited and Marc-Olivier Damour. And at the $20 level, Matt Ward, Mark Whittington, Dale Nesbitt, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Alsich, and Adam Meester. As I also want to thank all of you who are at the $10 level, who are in the crawl immediately following, and everyone else who supports this channel. So thank you for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge, and I really hope that this bill either gets some real revisions or just goes in the circular file where in its current form, that's where it belongs. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you next time.